Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities and shop live events with confidence.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Friday edition of the Mac and Jack Show. I'm Keith Engle filling in for Mac, who's a little under the weather. Today, we wish Mac well and hope he'll be back soon in his seat. And I'll just be here, cracking jokes and making crazy statements for half an hour on Fridays. Jack, how are you today?
Hey, good, Keith. A lot going on in the sports world. Excites me like always.
There it is.
It's good to have you on here. So getting your viewpoints on this. So this way, like when I say Keith Engle says this or that, I could say it to you directly.
Exactly. I didn't know you were talking about me when I wasn't here, Jack. That's fine. I'll have to start watching the show more.
It was partly complimentary.
I'm sure it's all complimentary. I mean, everybody talks complimentary about me except the 90% of the people who don't. Oh, God. We welcome everybody watching today on National Streaming Sports on Roku. I'm actually sharing it to my Facebook pages and the YouTube pages for TGI Sports and National Streaming Sports, So we welcome everybody. And again, we wish Mac, the best in recovering here soon, and maybe we'll see him soon. Oh, Jack, lots to talk about. We'll kick it off with the NFL because we had a big game last night in the NFC North, and Green Bay with a chance to climb within a game, and maybe they played well last night and maybe, push Detroit a little bit. Detroit looks like the class of the NFL right now. They've won, I think, 10 straight. They're 12-1. A good game all the way around. And I really I don't know your opinion. I know people will say, well, if he didn't get it, you wouldn't say the same thing. I would. I like guys who play to win games. And Dan Campbell last night on 4th and inches there at the end of the game could have easily just kicked a field goal and left Green Bay with 40 seconds. He decides to go for the first down. He's not risking the game necessarily, but I think it's a gutsy call, and I like that type of attitude.
It's a gutsy call, but I didn't agree with the last call of the game. I mean, I'm all for going for taking chances. When you have a chance to put the game away, you put it away. But they won the 21-yard line of Green Bay with 49 seconds left.
Yeah.
And Green Bay had no time. You kick the field goal. Green Bay would get the ball back with 44 seconds or so left on the clock. Let's say you're kicking the field of play. They get it at their own 25-yard line, even their own 30-yard line with no timeouts to go. The chances of Green Bay getting a touchdown and beating your I'm tongue-tied. Get the word from me. It's slim. But the point is, yeah, if you miss it at that moment, Green Bay has better field position, and a field goal in a case like that would win the game for them. Okay, so you're risking losing the game. The other way, you kick the field goal, you make it. You're only risking overtime at most.
Yeah, we've seen though 40 seconds in the NFL just to get a field goal is an eternity. I've seen tons of teams go down the field. We saw the Kansas City do it in the playoffs in 13 seconds. So,
but again, field goal. We're not talking about getting in field goal position. 49 seconds, the Packers can still get in field goal position, but it's going to be hard. They have no timeouts left.
well,
If you have
again,
the type of defense the Lions have, you're going to make it very difficult on Green Bay to get in field goal position. But the worst that'll happen realistically is Green Bay will tie the game and send it into overtime. But if you miss on fourth down, you increase their chances of not only getting into field goal position, but, conceivably, maybe doing a little more. But in any event, it worked out for Dan Campbell. Kudos to him. I like Dan Campbell as a coach. I like his attitude. It was a call he made early in the game that was questionable, in his own territory going forward and missing, by the way, and Green Bay did capitalize on that.
I feel like he's the most aggressive coach I've watched on fourth down since Bill Belichick. I remember Belichick going for it several times, once famously in a Sunday night game against the Colts in his own territory, and not getting it. Dan Campbell
I
has
supported that when Bill Belichick was on his own 29-yard line when the Patriots with Tom Brady were playing the Indianapolis Colts with Peyton Manning. Everyone later said, "Oh, Belichick should have punted." But if you punt the ball and you hand it over to Peyton Manning, he's going to score. He's going to find a way to score. So Belichick thought, I'm going to go for it. If I get a first down, I put the game away. If I don't get a first down, they're going to have the ball on my 29-yard line or so. They'll probably score anyway, one way or the other. So he decided, to just go for the win right there. And I supported it, at the time.
I agree. I think I like aggressiveness. And Linda, good morning, by the way. Good to see you and pass our best wishes along to Mac. Hopefully he's on the mend, as we said. Good morning, Dave Guyette out there in Amsterdam, New York. Rick Sherlock also out in Amsterdam, and William Akins, one of our TGI Sports Talk followers out in Pittsburgh. So I think he's in Pittsburgh. I know he's a Pittsburgh fan. There's no question, right? Detroit's the class of the NFL, 12-1. Is there anybody? Are they going to get challenged? I mean, Minnesota's a game behind them if they win this week, but they just look a step above everybody to me when I watch the games.
Not to me. They absolutely are going to get challenged. Where were you last night, Keith? You saw their main challenger right in front of your eyes, and people say it's the Philadelphia Eagles because the Eagles are on a great run. And everyone was saying before the game yesterday, the Lions better win because if they lose, they're going to have the same amount of losses as the Eagles. And the Eagles have an easier schedule. If you look carefully at the Eagles' schedule, it doesn't look that hard. I think they end the season at home with Dallas and the Giants. And but the point about it, Detroit can win at Philadelphia easier than Philadelphia can win at Detroit. So I understand the logic. But the Green Bay Packers, that's the team that's most likely to peak come playoff time. That's the team I picked to win the Super Bowl.
Well,
so maybe I'm being a little stubborn. But I think Green Bay is going to be a handful for the Lions if they meet up again in the playoffs. Yesterday wasn't a fluke. Yesterday wasn't a question of the Lions, knowing it's a long season. You can't be up there every game. And they're going to have their hands full with the Packers if they play them a third time. And keep this in mind, Keith, even though they've beaten them twice in a row, we were talking a little while ago, I mentioned the name Tom Brady. When his Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, they beat the New Orleans Saints in the playoffs. Well, they lost to them the last four times in a row in the regular season. Yeah. They lost them twice that year, but come playoff time, it was a different story.
Well, again, there's an argument to be made. They're certainly not head and shoulders above everybody else, but I think they're the best team. When I watch the games, it's the way they're winning games. They're winning games the way championship team win games. They win games they shouldn't win. They shouldn't want to get that Texan game. They were pretty much out of that and come back and win. They find ways to win, and that's why I like the Chiefs so much. They just find ways to win. And that's why I say that now. And you kind of alluded to it in the middle of your comments there, that there is a danger of they won 10 in a row now. Are they peaking too soon? Because there's still 5 weeks left in the regular season, or 4 for them. What's their record? 12-1.
Well, but some teams keep
for them.
once in a while you get a team that's a true powerhouse team.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be worried peaking too early because they could get it together come playoff time, like the Chicago Bears in the 80s. That one powerhouse team. You know, they suffered one little blip against the Dolphins, but they were so good. They would beat opponents decisively. And that Lion team reminds me a little bit of that team. The Kansas City Chiefs don't. By you saying, well, the Chiefs are always finding a way to win. Yeah, they're always finding a way to win against inferior teams who they should beat decisively. Their one big test this year that they had now I'm not talking about early in the year when teams are still trying to find their way, but against the Buffalo Bills, when they went to Buffalo, they lost that game. I mean, I wanted to see them find a way to win a game like that. Then it counts. You'll find a way to edge out the Las Vegas Raiders and the Carolina Panthers. It doesn't impress me finding a way, unless it's a trap game. But I don't want to hear trap games with the Chiefs because this way you could say every week is a trap game. As far as this Lion team goes, they're going to have a little bit of a gut check next week. They play the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills.
Everybody's favorite ex-coach, everybody but me, Bill Parcells, says you are what your record says you are, and finding ways to win leads to that record. And when I talk about the Chiefs, I'm not just talking about this year. I'm talking about the last several years. And they keep finding ways to win. And again, you don't beat bad teams in the playoffs, and they find ways to win games that people keep writing them off. And yes, they didn't play well against Buffalo, but that game, well, it'll have some importance for home field, which might be the difference maker for those two teams this year. Buffalo has not found a way to beat them in the playoffs yet. And I guess Dave Guyette, who's a big Buffalo fan, I know, wants to know what we think about the Bills at some point.
Well, I'm going to tell you, you're what Bill Parcells says, you're what your record says you are until the playoffs. Then you can wipe the slate clean. True. Your record doesn't matter once the playoffs begin. The teams that get a bye have an advantage because they have to win one less game, and they have both games at home. They have to win 2 games at home, and then they're in the Super Bowl. So they have that advantage going into the playoffs. Otherwise, the records don't mean much. And as far as home field advantage goes, I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything, but it's it's not that important, to an extent.
Yeah, you and I have disagreed on that for a long time, and in the NFL, I think it is a huge advantage. If you're the
Miami Dolphins, it's very important. They can't go into Buffalo or Kansas City and win a big game. I can understand that when the weather's really bad.
You don't think it makes a difference if the Lions had to go to Green Bay, for instance, which probably won't happen, but if they had to go to Green Bay, it would make a difference. You're playing in a
it didn't make a difference this year, did it, Keith? They beat them easier than they did yesterday. Yesterday, they barely got by the Packers.
Again,
they
the
beat
regular
them
season.
Decisively in Green Bay.
What in October? Not January. We've watched games at 10 below zero in Green Bay. Who's going to have an advantage? The Patriots had an advantage for years in the playoffs because they'd have that home field advantage, and television would put them on in prime time every night or every year. And I would watch Tennessee come up there and wilt, and I would watch other teams come in there and wilt because of the cold and the wind. And the Patriots had a huge home field advantage. So Northeast teams absolutely have an advantage in January if they're playing outside. Which I think
it depends. But the question before what we think of the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
I think Josh Allen, right at this moment, has to be considered the best quarterback in the NFL. And we're not talking about accomplishments. If you want to talk about accomplishments, what Patrick Mahomes has done over his career, he's in a class of his own. Okay. And I'm not comparing anyone to Patrick Mahomes over career accomplishments. And Patrick Mahomes is still elite. His receivers have been hurt. Isaiah Pacheco's been out. He's had to work in a lot of different formations and so on. I get all that. But Josh Allen's been phenomenal. He's a rarity. He's taken the offense, maybe the whole team in a sense, and he's put them on his back with his leadership, and he's carried them to a large extent. The the Buffalo Bills have overachieved this year to me. I mean, they've been great, and at this moment, they have to be the favorites, I think, to come out of the AFC at this moment. I'm not saying that they are going to be the team that's going to do it. I'm not saying that at all. There's obviously the Kansas City Chiefs, who put it together for the playoffs last year after they were kind of floundering even late in the season. They figured out a way how to win in the playoffs. And there's even a team like the Houston Texans, who I picked to go to the Super Bowl earlier this year. They're kind of laying in waiting in a certain sense. And some people want to make a case for the LA Chargers, even though I don't see it. I don't see a case for the LA Chargers or Denver Broncos going to the Super Bowl. But they don't have to. They've had good seasons regardless. Yeah. Making the playoffs makes their season.
Yeah, I think the AFC is a bit weaker than the NFC. And to what you're just talking about, I think the Broncos and Chargers are teams that are building still. They'll make the playoffs and they're good stories. The Texans, again, their record is, I think, 8-5, I think, and they're not playing terrible football, but they're not playing consistent football like they did last year either. Injuries have played a part of that, and I think trying to get new guys acclimated. Joe Mixon's been very good down there, I think, and maybe they get it together and get more dangerous towards playoff time. Though they could be a threat.
Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs, others.
Diggs is out.
Has the weapons. D'Amico Ryan is a defensive specialist. I kind of feel the Texans will have it together for their defensive unit come playoff time.
Well, Diggs is out for the season, so he's not going to help them. But Nico Collins is back from injury.
I heard something might be back for the playoffs. Is he definitely out for the season?
As far as, he's out for the rest of the regular season. I guess there was some talk that he could make it back. I think but with the injury he had, I don't think it's really conceivable that he's going to come back and really be a big contributor after missing, 3 months or whatever. So, but it's possible. Other news kind of related to the NFL, because a guy that we think, I think will be in this, definitely get hired in this next cycle of coaching hires is Bill Belichick. And out of nowhere, we find out that he interviewed, and I don't think anything's going to come of this, by the way. He interviews in Chapel Hill with the North Carolina Tar Heels, and I find that very interesting. I don't see Bill Belichick at 72, maybe 73 into next season going back to college, and I don't see it fit on either side. Yes, you can rebuild colleges quickly with the portal and NIL money and whatnot, but Carolina's not a powerhouse, and I don't see Bill Belichick making that move, or Carolina saying, I'm going to hire a 72-year-old coach when I just fired a 73-year-old coach.
Well, Carolina would love to have him for the simple reason he would elevate the franchise. He would make them so relevant on the national scene, because we constantly be hearing about their names because of Bill Belichick, just like what Deion Sanders meant to Colorado.
Yeah.
I mean, why do we hear about Colorado all the time? Because of Deion Sanders. He's turned them into a good team, but they still wouldn't be receiving the amount of publicity that they've had, to this point. But the question is, would Bill Belichick want to coach in college? Let's assume he really wants to get back into coaching. Does he care about the all-time win NFL record? He might not care about it as much as we think he does. We're assuming, he wants to do this or that. How do we know? We don't know what Bill Belichick is thinking. It might not mean much to him at all. And he might like the idea of having a college program that he's going to be 100% in charge of. No one is looking over his shoulder. He doesn't have an owner to answer to. Mm-hmm. And he could just develop it like he wants, and maybe just go back for the love of coaching, not for legacy, but the love of coaching. And maybe he likes the Carolina area as well. It might be feasible. I like living here. This is a nice place, nice university. I could coach. I could do what I love. No pressure here. We don't know what he's thinking. And he does have a link to college in the past. That's his roots, where he came up, his dad being a college coach.
Well, he was a baby, basically. And he has no college experience other than carrying a ball bag around for Navy. That's about all he got. But as far as college experience, which has got to count against him. You've never went out and recruited anybody. Now with transfer portal, it's more like free agency than it is, straight recruiting now. So maybe he's not as far behind the curve there as I might think. And again, it's just my opinion. I don't know what Bill Belichick's thinking, but I try to think like Bill Belichick, and I think like North Carolina. Yes, it builds my national profile, but for how long? I'm hiring a 73-year-old coach, and he's not going to coach much more than a couple of years. And an NFL team is going to say, I'm going to go all in and try to win a Super Bowl. If I got he's only going to a team that has a quarterback. I think the win record means something to him, and he's still got this Brady freaking thing on his back, and I think he wants to.
I don't think so. First up, he's about 5-6 years younger than the president-elect coming in, and current president, he's about 8-9 years younger than. So
yeah.
You can get by with the age thing. As far as Brady goes, Brady has been going out of his way to say the most complimentary things about Belichick, calling him the greatest coach of all time. Nothing but good words. Yes. They apparently have a good relationship now. And I can see it. I could see a scenario if there's a blue chip quarterback who's possibly interested in going to a school that Belichick is coaching. Could you imagine Belichick shows up at the door with Brady, and Brady tells that kid all Belichick can do for him?
Yeah.
And this kid's mouth would be hanging. Wow, I'm getting all this NFL wisdom, on the college level. I'm learning from the very best. And imagine a kid, a blue chip quarterback, the kid's dad who's involved in his career, and his dad knows what Belichick has done. It means something if a kid aspires to go to the NFL. Can't hear you. Can't hear Keith Engle. I don't know. Can everyone hear me? I can't hear you, Keith. We lost some. Can they hear me?
I think they can.
Oh, yeah, hear me. The audience hear me, because I could have gone on a little while on my own. It wouldn't have been as good as you. It would have been like I had no one to pass the ball to, so I would have had to chuck up long shots.
My soundboard decided to turn itself off. I have no idea why.
Yeah. I mean, we're on football, and I know part of the agenda you wanted to mention one of my favorite players, right?
Well, I do. Let me go back real quick to Belichick, because I did hear what you were saying until the very end. Yes, he could do some recruiting on offense and get a quarterback, but offense has not been the problem in North Carolina. The problem is they need defense. Now, he's a defensive guy. They lost a game this year. Their defense has been horrible since Mac Brown came back there. Couldn't fix it. He had about 4 different defensive coordinators. And just this year, they give up 70 points to James Madison, and scored 50. So they need to turn their defense around there more than worry about the offense. But again, with no coaching experience, as William Aikens also said here, I just don't see it happening. But we'll find out. This is why it's fun.
His job if he wants it. Put it this way, it'll be his job if he wants it.
Yeah.
And the idea that they call him in, they're not going to put Bill Belichick in a competition where they're interviewing other coaches that maybe you have it, maybe you don't. I'm sure if they called him in, they basically let him know they would like him if he wants the job. If he's interested, they would like him to come on board. I think they probably expressed that to him in the first meeting.
I suspect other things going on here too. North Carolina released this news yesterday. They don't want to leak this news, and they may have other candidates that they want to push. That rather than thinking about the job, they say, "Hey, we can just get Belichick and get somebody else to jump." We'll see. I think somebody gets hired there in the next week, so we'll find out. Yes, I did have a guy I wanted to bring up to you. One of your favorite players, everybody's favorite players on your favorite team. Aaron Rodgers was quoted the other day when he was asked about, if this is kind of an audition for him these last 5 games for the Jets, that he doesn't feel he has anything to prove. And I kind of agree. He doesn't have anything to prove because you're not coming back next year anyway. There's no way the Jets are running this back. What are your thoughts on, first of all, him thinking he has not had a vintage Aaron Rodgers year? You look at the numbers, they aren't terrible, but when you watch him, he looks nothing like the Aaron Rodgers of old.
Yeah, by the way, they're going to have this documentary on Aaron Rodgers on Netflix. We'll be sure to watch it. It's going to show him from the inside when he went on his retreat and this and that. I was disappointed in Aaron Rodgers' remarks. He has a heck of a lot to prove these last 5 games. I mean, I don't believe the Jets have completely shut the door on running it back with him. And his career, in a sense, hinges on what he's going to do in these next 5 games. And I don't like him saying, well, I don't know, will I come back or will I, won't I? If his attitude is he's not sure what he's doing, I'm going to want to move on from him for sure.
Yeah.
If he's decisive and says, I want to come back next year, we lost a lot of close games that I know we could win. We're going to turn it around. We have these 5 games to show what we're capable of doing. They are important. And I would have loved to have seen him rally the team. Look, these games are important. And I would have loved him to give the team a speech. Remember when we were kids, we played, every game was important. There were no standings, no playoffs. We just played to win. And look good these last 5 games. Play really well and make ownership think, wow, we could have won some of those earlier games. It is very important. For him to say, I have nothing to prove. He has a lot to prove. Aaron Rodgers hasn't had a good season in 3 years. After his back-to-back MVP years, he was so-so with the Packers in the last year. We already had a hand injury. We gave him a pass. Then he had the Achilles injury against the Jets. Not his fault, but he came back this year. No excuses. The best I could say about him, he stayed healthy. He's shown he could be durable, and he showed he could move around a bit too when he had to.
See, I don't think he moves anywhere near the way Aaron Rodgers moved before this injury. And again, he's going to be 42 next year or 41.
Yeah.
Early 40s.
41.
And again, you don't have to move, but that was a big part of his game. He wasn't Tom Brady who just stood in the pocket. He's moved around his entire career. And I don't see that same, or maybe he moves around, but then I don't see the same arm strength or accuracy on the move that he had before. So you put that together, and I see a guy who's, I'm sorry, just not nearly the player he was even 3 years ago. So can the Jets, Jack, sell this to their fan base that we're gonna run this back one more time with the exact same cast?
If he looks good the last 5 games, they can, because they have no choice, Keith. What are your alternatives?
Well, there is
chances are you're not going to be able to draft a top-of-the-line college quarterback. And if you do, let's say the Jets continue to lose and you do, maybe you want to develop him. You don't want to just throw him in. We don't know what's available in college. You would know better than I can. My feeling is you tell me there's no one there who could just come in out of college and take over as the Jets starting quarterback. They're not going to get a Quinn Ewers who's going to take over as the Jets starter next year. And if he does come to the Jets, he sits a while and learns from Aaron Rodgers. That would be an ideal situation. Or free agency. What are you going to do? Get a Jameis Winston? It could work out with Jameis Winston. Not Sam Darnold. No, Sam Darnold, I thought would do as well as he did with the Vikings. I predicted that in the beginning of the year. He's not the best fit for the Jets. I hate to say it.
No, he's not
the best fit to run it back with Sam Darnold again. Some team players are better off with certain teams. So what are you going to do in the meantime? I mean, don't tell me this nonsense with Tyrod Taylor. You don't want to put a Band-Aid on this thing. You want a solution. You want to develop a young quarterback more than anything. And who's available? You tell me what's possible in college.
There's very little possible. They could draft a Cam Ewers because Cam Ewers is going at the end of the first round back at maybe day 2. Cam Ewers, Carson Beck, they'll all be there day 2. So you don't have to waste the number 1 draft pick on them. But they're not ready to play.
They're not ready to play. So if you have Aaron Rodgers one more year,
correct.
You live with that basically because, okay, he's not the player he was, but look at it this way, Keith. If Aaron Rodgers was a backup quarterback, could I make the argument he'd be the best backup in the NFL? You can maybe make that argument.
Yeah, possibly.
Okay? You'll call him a fringe starter now. Call him a bridge quarterback. He's no longer the Aaron Rodgers we know. But can you accept him as a Jacoby Brissett type of bridge quarterback? I think you can easily do that.
Be an expensive one for sure, but
yeah. Well, for one season, one more year, And I wouldn't worry about Aaron Rodgers' feelings because he's the same guy who keeps saying, I don't know whether I'm going to come back. Well, my attitude is, I don't know whether we want you back. It goes both ways.
Well, I'm getting a little echo. I don't know why. I apologize. But William's got a great point here. If he does come back, he needs to be in minicamp in the OTAs and not in a cave somewhere.
No, I don't want to hear that, William. William, it was a few days.
A
few days at the end of June.
I had the same problem with Tom Brady and when he was in Tampa and he was going to stay home and not come to camp until, halfway through. But
that was a long period of time. What Rodgers did was a handful of days. Do I want him back, Rick? If there's no better alternatives, yeah, I do want him back. If there are no better alternatives, the Jets actually drafted a young quarterback last year, Jordan Travis from Florida, but he's been hurt.
Yeah,
and he hasn't really developed. He's a forgotten guy.
He's not prepared to play for sure.
But he had potential, though.
To the OTA part, I mean, if you want to be a leader of a team, you need to be there when they're out there busting their butts, trying to win jobs, trying to do whatever, and you need to be there. That's my opinion. And I was hard on Tom Brady in the same situation. So I'm just saying, I think I agree with William here.
Yeah, I think it's too much perception made out of it. Keep this in mind. We haven't heard any negative words, anonymously even, about Aaron Rodgers coming from the locker room. We haven't heard that at all. So apparently he gets along with his teammates. Okay, so that isn't an issue. He gets along with the coaching staff. I think it's an outside perception. I mean, it's wearing thin on me, his comments. I'm going to be honest about it. By him saying he has nothing to prove these 5 games remaining, he has a heck of a lot to prove these 5 games. He has to show he's still an NFL starting caliber quarterback. You don't have to show me the Aaron Rodgers of old. I understand he's not. But can he at least be a bridge quarterback while the Jets are figuring out what to do in the future? You know who could be available, who I might be willing to turn the quarterback position over to? And I haven't been his biggest fan, but a Justin Fields. If he's available at the end of the season, which is a possibility, because the Steelers aren't going to keep both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, I might be willing to run it with Justin Fields and let him develop, as he goes along and take a chance with him.
I want to say one thing about the teammates in the locker room part. When you said this last time, I wanted to say it and I didn't get it out. You may very well be right, but I don't think we know for a fact how they feel until he's gone, because they're not going to say it while he's there. They're just not. It's not going to happen.
Well, you could hear about certain frustration going on.
Not about.
I mean, it has to be a little hard for Garrett Wilson at times. Him and Rodgers, sometimes the chemistry is good, sometimes it's not good. It should be better than it is at this point in the season. And I think Devontae Adams coming over to the Jets, he's Rodgers' security blanket. In a way, I think that hurts Garrett Wilson, who really would be a number 1 receiver on the majority of teams in the NFL.
Well, it's going to be an interesting offseason for the Jets, and under new management with a new GM coming in and likely a new head coach. So I don't think the interim staying here for sure.
Well, I think that's a more important issue. Who's the head coach? And what's his attitude going to be towards Rodgers?
That's a huge 2 things. Who wants the job with that drama going on that he's got to deal with if Rodgers is going to be part of the show? And if he does come in, how does he deal with Rodgers? So, again,
well, can you imagine the scene, Keith, during a game, Aaron Rodgers getting benched and Tyrod Taylor coming in? Any coach making that move knows that is going to be major news the next day, and it's going to be a big headache to deal with it with the media. So believe me, any coach would dread benching Aaron Rodgers during a game.
I agree, which, again, do you want to come into that situation? And Williams got a good point here. I was going to bring this up. Part of his comments this week, not just about not having to show anything, he also was pretty hard on the Jets and Woody Johnson, without saying it directly, that they fired a head coach he thought they shouldn't have fired. And people listen, there's a very thin line here. Do I think Aaron Rodgers necessarily went and said, I want Saleh out of here? No. But if he wanted him to stay, he could have spoke up and Robert Saleh would still be the head coach.
I don't think, chances are Aaron Rodgers didn't know. I mean, he was going to get fired. I mean, come on. I mean, why would he say that about Woody Johnson? Now, if Woody Johnson came out and said something that Aaron Rodgers knew the move we were going to make and didn't speak up, I believe Woody Johnson if he came out and actually said that.
Yeah.
But we don't know it. You know, all indications are that Aaron Rodgers had a good relationship with Robert Saleh. I mean, all indications. Don't tell me that little sideline thing when Salah wanted to.
I don't care about that.
That's a quick human interaction.
I don't care about that.
But Rodgers is saying he wishes ownership would support, the coaching staff to this, to that. And, he didn't say it directly with the Jets, but he gave the Lions as an example, the way they stay by the guy, the culture that they show and so on. It's hard for the Jets to show support their ownership when you look at how they haven't been in the playoffs in 14 years? Come on.
About that. We had a little soundboard issue this morning. I find it hard to believe that Rodgers didn't go to or hear from Woody Johnson before he fired Robert Saleh. I find that very hard to believe. With all the
called him the night before to ask him how he's doing, how he's feeling, how he's this, how he's that. Maybe Woody Johnson was waiting for Rodgers to say something to the effect that, no, the coaches are giving us good advice, this. Keep this in mind. He got fired, Robert Saleh, after the Minnesota Viking game that took place in London. Yep. Woody Johnson was an ambassador for the United States for England. That was a big embarrassment to Woody Johnson to lose that game in England. Okay? So that contributed to it to an extent.
Maybe the Jets would be better off if he gets another ambassadorship before next season. We'll see what happens there.
No, he's not. No. Donald Trump already picked someone else.
Saleh wanted to fire Hackett. Rodgers loves Hackett. Well, who knows?
Let's see who the Jets. They have a lot of good coaching candidates out there for the Jets and for the Giants.
Very good.
Maybe a year from now from the Patriots, unless they start winning next season.
Agreed.
But you look at Brian Flores. He has baggage, unfortunately, but to me, he's an outstanding coach. I'd still look at him seriously, even though I don't know whether I'd give him the job because of the baggage. There's Aaron Glenn.
Mike Vrabel's the guy.
Johnson, Mike Vrabel. Eric Bieniemy, his stock really took a dip from USC. I mean, UCLA. I mean, man, oh man. I mean, talk about, had he decided to spend all the time with the Kansas City Chiefs, that would have been the most cushiony job. You stay in Andy Reid's shadow, you get your paycheck, people talk well about you, you attach to Patrick Mahomes, but he went elsewhere. He didn't do that bad a job at Washington, but he didn't quite get it done there either. It's Sam Howell. And now it's going back.
And the new coach came in and was going to have his own guys. So
right, exactly.
You're right. I think Eric Bieniemy is a good example of be careful what you wish for, because he wanted to get out of Andy Reid's shadow, and it hasn't worked out all that great. So the last 3 years for him.
No, he's not even on anyone's radar as a possible head coach. If he can get interviewed.
I think his head coaching chances are probably past. That window's probably closed, and he's going to be happy to get a new NFL coordinator's job if anything.
He's picked up some nice little paychecks along the way, so he should be financially secure when his coaching career eventually ends. So kudos to him for that.
And we do have to end a little early today, guys, because I've got to get. I see. Actually, I'm checking my other studio, and I see my guest there, so I don't want him to be too late, and I want to get in there by 8:50 or so. So we're at 8:45, and between 8:45 and 8:50, we'll have to wrap it up. Let's move on to a little bit of baseball, Jack. All indications are Juan Soto is going to make his decision here probably in the next week or so. He said before the winter meetings end next week, which I think is the 9th, if I'm not mistaken. My gut still says he's not coming back to the Yankees. The Dodgers keep finding ways to manipulate the salary cap. They've got $1 billion now in deferred salaries on that team. I think the Dodgers are going to sneak in here and take him away. Or is it down to Mets and Yankees? I really don't know. My gut says he won't be a Yankee next year.
Yeah, I think he's gone to the Mets because Steve Cohen has the most money by far of any owner in baseball. Steve Cohen can afford to take a big financial loss. To the Yankees, at the end, it's going to be a business. They're going to come up with a good competitive offer, but there's going to be a stopping point. The question is this: would Soto be willing to play for the Yankees? And I don't think so, for $100 million less. If the Yankees are offering him $610 million a package, and the Mets are offering someone else $720 million, might he think, how much money do you necessarily need? I love being with the Yankees all these years. And when you look at it, it might be an extra $6-7 million a year. It'll be about the money at the end. If he goes elsewhere, Keith, it'll be about the money. If he's not a New York Yankee, I don't want to hear about all the other teams have to offer. Soto loved being a Yankee this year.
He does.
And I don't want to hear about culture, winning tradition, farm systems, because the Yankees are going to supply that, and he kind of knows it. It's going to be about the money. But players, when they sign with another team, they always say it's not about the money. But we always know it is about the money.
It's always about the money and always follow money.
I think he's gone to the Mets because I think the Mets will up the ante and put enough space between them and the other teams no matter what, unless Soto loves being a Yankee so much that that's going to override even the money part of it. I don't think so, but it's possible it would.
Well, one good sign for the Yankees, I guess, in the last few weeks, and Soto had made it clear that every place else he'd been, he'd had a really good relationship with the owner. And he hadn't had that. He never really sat down for a conversation with Howard Steinbrenner until the last few weeks or month or so. And it went really well. And I think that part, again, the money is going to be the determining factor. But he says playing for an owner that he has a relationship with is important to him as well. So at least Hal getting involved personally, I think, makes some difference. I still think he's not coming back.
Well, Keith, in defense of Hal, if Soto is potentially going to be there only 1 year, how cozy do you want to get with them? But I will say this: Hal could have called him into the office during points of the year and saying, "Look, I'm not going to talk money with you. That's something I have to talk to Scott Boras about, your agent. Yep. But I can only sell you on this team that much. My words. During the off season, when you're a free agent, I'm not going to wine and dine you the way the other owners are, because I want you to remember the type of organization we have, And if you do come back, we're going to have this type of relationship, that type of relationship. Could Hal have done a little more during the year? I don't know. Agreed.
I got to bring this up. I talked about it yesterday when I did a show I didn't know I was going to do here, or maybe I wasn't supposed to do. But we talked about Manfred says there's buzz. I don't know where there's buzz because everything I've seen is totally against this. The golden bat, new golden bat rule where you can insert anybody you want at any point in time, at whatever situation fits you best. One time you can put any bat in the lineup. Doesn't matter whether it's, again, I used an example with you earlier of Ohtani's, let's say it's a ninth inning, they're down by 2 runs, they got the bases loaded. You can put Ohtani up. Doesn't matter whether he just struck out the time before or he hit the previous inning or he's due up 2 spots away. You can put him in there to hit right then and there. And you're so much changing the dynamic of the game. And we've already done a lot of that. This just is getting out of control with what he wants.
No, keep an open mind, Keith. My feeling is if we were around having this show to talk about it back in the day, you would have said the designated hitter, what are they doing? They're destroying the game. That's against all tradition. I want to see the complete ball player. Have an open mind to this.
It's 100% right.
I don't know whether I support it yet or not. I got to think about it a little more, but it is exciting. It's intriguing. You put Ohtani up twice. You got to get him out twice. Can you imagine you bringing someone from the bullpen to face Ohtani and you have to get him out twice? That's kind of fun. It's fun to think about.
it's fun in a beer league softball game, maybe, but not Major League Baseball. I mean, come on, you're turning this thing into a circus, and you're overinflating. Look at the stolen bases this year. Everybody's excited the stolen bases are up. Well, it's artificially created by the fact that you shortened the base pass, by the way, by making the bases bigger. You might think a couple inches doesn't matter, but it does. And the pitch clock, and the fact you can only throw over to first base twice. All of that, you artificially increased stolen base attempts and actual steals this year. So stop trying to artificially fix the game and just play the game the way it was meant to be played. And it's a very entertaining game, but we don't do that. So I don't know. You know, it's probably never going to happen. But the fact that he floats this stuff and people talk about it, maybe that's what he wants. Maybe he wants people talking about Major League Baseball during the middle of football season. And maybe that's what this is all about. I don't know.
I think people they talk about the Golden at bat, and they would be excited about it if it became a reality. They really would. You know, you could use it once a game. It could be in the first inning. It could be in the ninth inning. And also it's partly strategy, because if you don't use it early in the game when you have a chance and you're holding it out for later in the game, you might never be given that opportunity again.
No,
so
I mean,
it'll factor into a manager's strategy as well.
There is a strategy that I keep losing my soundboard somehow. But,
okay, well, we're wrapping up anyway this show, so
yeah, we're gonna wrap up, and I will say this: you're right, Jack, about my thoughts on the designated hitter. I don't like it. I still don't like it.
Still don't like it. Wow.
It is what it is, and it's never going to change. So you got to accept these things. Real quick before we go, I'll give everybody, because Mac would always ask me on this show my college picks. We got college conference championships this weekend, and I'll give you 3 picks. I gave them yesterday, but I'll give them again today. Arizona -2.5 over Iowa State, SMU -2.5 over Clemson, and Oregon's going to take Penn State apart. I'll take Oregon -3.5 tomorrow.
So. Right. And I'll take Ohio State and give the 20.5 points to Michigan. So don't ask me ever again my college picks.
Even after they lost, Jack still take
them. Man, that was my pick. Give the 20.5 points, take Ohio State.
It's been an exciting college football season. Yeah. And the 12-team playoff has added to it. Just one big weekend, one game. I'll mention this real quick because we do have to get going. But the most important game being played this weekend is probably SMU and Clemson, because if Clemson does find a way to win, they get themselves into the field, and it's likely going to bump Alabama back out of the playoff field, because SMU will likely get in. The committee has said they will not punish anybody who loses a conference championship game. So we'll see whether they're true to their word if Clemson should find a way to upset SMU.
Yeah, Alabama's on the brink. People didn't think they were going to be in this position, but it's 50-50 now. Yeah,
good stuff. Well, Jack, I've had fun again this morning. If we got to do it again next week, hopefully you don't, because Mac will be better. That's what we're wishing for. But next week, and I'll see you, I think, Sunday morning. We'll see what goes on there, because I can't start that show up because of my own show. But I'm sure somebody is on top of that, hopefully, with the big football show. So anyway, we appreciate everybody tuning in. We wish Mac the best. And Jack, thanks. You have a great weekend, and we'll see everybody later. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, Keith.
Bye-bye.